Nobody expected the moment to explode the way it did. It wasn't a touchdown, a turnover, or some highlight reel play that set the entire Browns fanbase on fire. It was something far smaller, quieter, and somehow louder than anything that happened on the field. A sideline moment, just a few seconds caught by a roaming TV camera, that instantly became the most talked about scene of the entire game. And if you weren't paying attention, you might have missed it. But inside the Browns organization, inside that locker room, and inside the mind of billionaire owner Jimmy Haslam, that moment meant everything. It started with Shedeur Sanders sitting on the bench, tablet in hand, locked into that calm, focused expression he always wears when he's studying film. The Browns were losing, the offense was sputtering, and the rookie quarterback was doing what rookies are supposed to do, trying to learn, trying to adjust, trying to figure out how to fix the next drive. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic, just a young QB trying to get better. And then, out of nowhere, Jerry Jeudy arrived like a storm. He wasn't walking over to talk. He wasn't coming to encourage. He wasn't even coming to ask a question. He walked over with fire already in his eyes, clapping his hands inches from Shedeur's face, leaning over him, repeating something that made Shedeur turn away in disbelief. The cameras didn't catch every word, but the body language didn't need subtitles. It was the kind of confrontation that freezes the entire sideline. The kind where players stop mid-conversation, where coaches glance over, where veteran linemen step in without being asked. In those few seconds, Jeudy wasn't just arguing with a rookie quarterback, he was publicly challenging him, talking down to him, almost daring him to snap back. And for a moment, it looked like Shedeur wanted to. You could see it in how he straightened his posture, how he opened his mouth to respond, how he tried to defend himself without escalating the situation. But every time he tried to speak, Jeudy cut him off. That's wrong, over and over. This wasn't leadership. This wasn't accountability. This wasn't a veteran trying to help a young QB learn. It looked like frustration boiling over into disrespect, and the whole world saw it. What most people didn't see, what the cameras didn't show, was who else was watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to stay locked in on all the latest NFL drama, make sure you hit that like button. It helps the video reach more people who love this content just like you. And if you're new here, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another update, reaction, or storyline as it unfolds in real time. I also want to hear from you in the comments. What do you think about Shedeur Sanders' performance and the Browns' collapse? Drop your thoughts below and let's talk about it. And don't forget to share this video with friends who follow the NFL. Your support truly keeps the channel moving forward. Up in the owner's suite, Jimmy Haslam saw that interaction play out in real time. And according to people close to the organization, that single moment hit him harder than any bad throw, any blown route, or any stalled drive this season. Because this wasn't just a disagreement. It was a direct shot at the quarterback he defended publicly. The quarterback he believed in when the national media mocked the draft pick. The quarterback he sees as the future of the franchise. And in that instant, everything changed, not because of the argument itself, but because of what it revealed. The cracks, the tension, the disrespect, the truth. The moment Jerry Jeudy stepped into Shedeur's face wasn't just a sideline blow-up. It was the spark that exposed a much bigger story. What made the entire situation so shocking is that nothing about the moment felt planned. It wasn't the result of a heated exchange during a timeout, or a miscommunication on the previous snap, or a disagreement that had been building throughout the game. It hit the sideline like a flash, sudden, loud, and impossible to ignore. 1 second, Shedeur Sanders was quietly scanning plays on the tablet with 2 offensive linemen beside him. And the next, Jerry Jeudy was storming in with enough energy to turn heads all the way down the bench. Players argued on the sideline all the time. Quarterbacks barked at receivers. Receivers barked at quarterbacks. Coaches got between people. But this didn't look like one of those moments. This wasn't fiery competitiveness or the type of frustration that comes from 2 players who care too much. This was personal, sharp, one-sided. The footage shows Jeudy walking up with intensity already loaded in his expression, like he had been replaying a certain play in his mind and couldn't let it go. He clapped his hands aggressively, right in Shedeur's face. Not a come on, let's lock and clap, but a confrontational one, the type meant to embarrass someone, to assert dominance in front of the entire team. His body tilted forward, his voice loud enough to attract attention from players sitting several seats down. And right away, you could see Shedeur's reaction, confusion mixed with disbelief. It almost didn't look real. Shedeur turned his head, subtly at first, then more deliberately, as if trying to signal that he wasn't interested in escalating things or giving the cameras anything extra to grab. But Jeudy kept going. He kept repeating his point, waving his hands, pointing toward the field, almost reenacting the play he believed Shedeur had messed up. The message was clear. You were wrong. You messed up. And I'm going to make sure everyone hears it. At one point, Shedeur tried to respond. You could see him lean forward, open his mouth, and say something, probably an explanation of the read, the route, or what he saw in coverage. But before he could get more than a sentence out, Jeudy cut him off again. That's wrong, that's wrong. The same phrase, the same tone, like he wasn't there to talk. He was there to lecture. That's when Ethan Posick finally stepped in. He didn't shove anyone or raise his voice. He simply placed a hand between the two and shifted his body forward, blocking Jeudy's line of sight, sending a message without saying a word. Enough. If Posick doesn't intervene, the moment might have exploded into something much worse. But even with the confrontation cooling down, the scene had already been captured from multiple angles. Social media had already clipped it. Fans had already started dissecting every frame. And up in the suite, Jimmy Haslam had already watched his rookie quarterback get publicly challenged by a veteran who hadn't exactly been playing like one. But the part that stunned people the most wasn't the confrontation itself. It was that Jeudy chose to do this to Shedeur, not the coaches, not the play caller, not even in private. He chose the rookie. He chose the national spotlight. And he chose the worst possible moment. And that choice revealed something Cleveland didn't want to admit. This wasn't just tension. It was a sign of something deeper, something broken. According to several people around the organization, people who have either worked in the building or have long-standing ties to the Haslam circle, the owner's reaction to the sideline blow-up was immediate. Not loud, not theatrical, not emotional in a way the cameras would catch, but the kind of reaction that sends a chill through the room. Because when Jimmy Haslam goes quiet, when his jaw tightens and his eyes lock onto a screen, it usually means something is shifting behind the scenes. One person described it this way. He wasn't angry. He was evaluating, like the wheels were turning. Rumor has it that Haslam had invited a small group of guests to the suite that day, business friends, a former player, maybe even a minority investor. And when the clip of Jeudy clapping in Shedeur's face appeared on the stadium monitor, the suite reportedly went dead silent. Not because of the argument itself, but because of the player involved. The franchise's hand-picked rookie, the quarterback Haslam pushed hardest for, the young star Cleveland was already marketing as the new face of the team. Multiple sources claim that Haslam didn't say anything for the first few seconds. He simply watched, replayed the moment on a separate screen, watched it again. And then, in that calm tone people inside the building have learned to watch closely, he allegedly said something like, "We're not doing that to our quarterback." Not shouted, not emotional, just firm. Those in his orbit say that Haslam has always been highly protective of players he believes represent the future of the franchise. And privately, according to people familiar with his thinking, he views Shedeur Sanders as one of the most important investments the organization has made in years. Not just a quarterback, a cultural anchor, a marketing engine, and someone who could finally stabilize a position Cleveland has failed at for decades. So when a veteran receiver, especially one whose production hasn't matched his reputation, publicly confronted Shedeur, the optics reportedly hit Haslam in a very specific way. Not as a football moment, but as a leadership moment, a respect moment, a cultural moment. There's a rumor floating around league circles that Haslam immediately asked two questions. Why is a rookie being talked to like that? And why is no coach stepping in? Whether or not he actually said those exact words is impossible to confirm. But the sentiment matches what insiders have been whispering for months. Haslam wants structure, discipline, and a unified message around Shedeur. Anything that threatens that, even a sideline flare-up, is treated as a crack in the foundation. Some people even claim that after the incident, Haslam made a quiet exit from the suite earlier than usual, not storming out, not slamming the door, just leaving, which for him, insiders say, is its own signal. When he walks out early, it means decisions are going to be discussed later, behind closed doors, with people who have very little margin for error. And if the rumors are true, the message was clear. This wasn't just a sideline argument. This was a warning shot. And Haslam does not ignore warning shots. For people who have followed Jerry Jeudy's career closely, the sideline blow-up with Shedeur didn't come out of nowhere. It didn't surprise former teammates, certain coaches, or even some fans who have watched his journey from Alabama to the NFL. What shock the public felt, to many around the league, like a continuation of a pattern, not necessarily one of malice, but of competitiveness, pride, and a personality that has always walked the tightrope between passion and ego. To be clear, no one questions Jeudy's talent. Even his strongest critics acknowledge that his footwork, route running, and explosiveness are elite. But talent often comes packaged with intensity, and Jeudy has carried that intensity into every locker room he's been part of. Former Broncos beat reporters have often described him as fiery, emotional, and deeply affected by on-field results. According to several media accounts over the years, when things go wrong, Jeudy wears the frustration openly, sometimes too openly. Back in Denver, there were multiple moments that fans still bring up on social media. A few sideline expressions caught on camera, a disagreement or two with coaches during frustrating losses, a practice argument that became a brief headline. Nothing ever reached a full boil, but there were flashes, moments that hinted at a personality that hated losing and didn't hide it well. Commentators often said he was someone who expected perfection and wasn't shy about showing displeasure when he didn't get it. When he arrived in Cleveland, insiders say the coaching staff understood this. They reportedly viewed Jeudy as a player who thrived on rhythm and trust, someone who needed chemistry with his quarterback, alignment with his coordinator, and a sense of being featured in the offense. When those things clicked, he played loose and confident. When they didn't, frustration could creep in. And this season, frustration had been creeping in. According to local reporters, Jeudy had been growing irritated with his role in the offense, believing he wasn't being utilized the way he envisioned when he first arrived. Analysts pointed out that the Browns' system, especially early with a rookie quarterback, didn't always showcase Jeudy's full skill set. Deep shots were limited, timing routes were inconsistent, targets fluctuated. And for a player used to being a focal point, that can build tension, quietly at first, then visibly. Several former players weighing in online after the sideline incident mentioned something similar. Jeudy has always been confident, sometimes to the point where teammates misinterpret it as ego. Others described him as someone who takes slights personally, even when they aren't directed at him. A few analysts even recalled previous televised moments where Jeudy reacted strongly to missed opportunities or miscommunications. So when the confrontation with Shedeur happened, many inside the league weren't shocked by Jeudy being the one to step forward so aggressively. Not because he's a bad teammate. Teammates often say he works hard, competes hard, and wants to win, but because he has never been someone who bottles things up. If something bothers him, it shows. If something feels off, he says it. And if he thinks someone is wrong, even a quarterback, he confronts it immediately. But this time, the spotlight was different. This time, the audience wasn't just teammates. This time, the entire franchise, and the owner was watching. What made the entire sideline meltdown even stranger wasn't just the timing. It was what the numbers actually showed. Because when fans, analysts, and even former players dug into the data after the clip went viral, something became painfully clear. The argument Jerry Jeudy seemed to be making didn't match the reality on the field. From the moment Shedeur Sanders took over as the Browns' starting quarterback, the offense shifted in a way that should have benefited Jeudy more than almost anyone else. Analysts pointed out that Shedeur's playing style, quick reads, timing-based throws, and decisive progressions, tends to elevate precise route runners. And that's supposed to be Jeudy's hallmark. His entire brand is built around separation, footwork, and creating easy throwing windows. And here's the part that stunned fans. The numbers say Shedeur was giving him those windows. Across the first stretch of games, Jeudy was consistently one of the most targeted players on the roster. He wasn't being ignored. He wasn't being phased out. In fact, several breakdowns posted online showed that a huge share of Sanders' intermediate attempts went Jeudy's way. Analysts on social media even shared clips highlighting how often Shedeur looked to Jeudy on third downs, red zone plays, and high-leverage moments. The rookie trusted him. But trust isn't the whole story. Production matters too. And that's where things got uncomfortable. Because while the opportunities were there, the efficiency was. According to multiple public stat breakdowns, Jeudy's catch rate dipped noticeably compared to preseason expectations. Some analysts pointed out that despite being near the top in targets, he wasn't near the top in completions or total yardage. Others highlighted missed timing routes, drops in key moments, and routes that didn't sync with the aggressive timing Shedeur was trying to establish. One analyst even summarized it bluntly during a post-game livestream. Jeudy's frustration doesn't line up with the film. He's getting chances. He just isn't maximizing them. And that became the talking point everywhere. Sports radio shows repeated it. Former players backed it up with tape. Fans circulated side-by-side comparisons, showing that Jeudy's efficiency lagged behind other receivers running similar concepts. To be fair, no stat tells the whole story. Timing with a new quarterback can take weeks, sometimes months, to build. And Jeudy's supporters pointed that out immediately. They argued that the offense hadn't fully opened up yet, that Sanders was still adjusting to NFL windows, and that Jeudy's skill set would shine brighter once the scheme expanded. But even those defending, Jeudy admitted something. The argument he was making in the heat of that moment didn't reflect the bigger picture. The numbers weren't working in his favor. The film wasn't backing him up. And the reality was simple. If anything, Shedeur was trying to get Jeudy going, not hold him back. Which made the blow-up feel less like a strategic disagreement and more like raw frustration, boiling over at the worst possible time. But the real consequences didn't hit until the locker room stepped in, and what happened next changed the entire dynamic. In the hours after the sideline blow-up, most rookies would have panicked. They would have shut down, gotten defensive, or tried to disappear under the weight of the spotlight. But Shedeur Sanders isn't built like most rookies, and that became obvious the moment he stepped off the field. While social media erupted and reporters crammed timelines with speculation, Shedeur kept the same expression he wore during the game. Steady, controlled, almost unnervingly calm for someone in the middle of a viral storm. People close to him have said for years that pressure doesn't rattle him, it sharpens him. Growing up in the Sanders household meant pressure was basically a roommate. Every game, every practice, every public moment came with expectations. And Shedeur learned early that losing control in public is the fastest way to let others write your story for you. So instead, he writes his own. Right after the incident, teammates expected him to lash out or at least pull Jeudy aside for a heated conversation. But according to several insiders, Shedeur didn't react emotionally at all. He didn't return the yelling. He didn't match the energy. He simply nodded, turned away, and went right back to the huddle like nothing had happened. That single moment told the locker room more about his maturity than any stat line could. Later, when he addressed the team privately, players said his tone was direct but calm. No theatrics, no calling people out by name. He talked about execution, accountability, and trust, 3 things he believed the offense needed more than ever. And instead of focusing on the confrontation, he focused on how the team needed to respond moving forward. That approach resonated with veterans and young guys alike. They saw a rookie who wasn't trying to prove he was in charge. He simply was. Even the coaching staff noticed the shift. According to several reports, Stefanski was impressed not just with Shedeur's composure, but with how quickly the locker room rallied around him. Quarterbacks usually need time, months, sometimes years, to build that kind of credibility. But Shedeur earned it in one night, not because of his stats, but because of how he handled a moment designed to break him. And the most interesting part? The players said he barely spoke about the confrontation at all. He didn't make it personal. He didn't drag it out. His message was simple. We're here to work. Everything else stays outside the lines. In a league where drama spreads like wildfire, that kind of clarity is rare. It set a tone the team desperately needed. Even analysts who doubted him before the season began started shifting their tone. They weren't talking about Shedeur as just Dayan's kid or the rookie experiment. They were talking about him as a leader, someone who understood the weight of the position and wasn't intimidated by it. What the public saw as a controversy, the locker room saw as something else entirely, a test. And Shedeur passed it with a level of self-control veterans, twice his age struggle to show. But if Shedeur's response brought stability, the next 48 hours brought something nobody expected, front office involvement that set the franchise on edge. When the game finally ended and the players filed back into the tunnel, the cameras couldn't follow them anymore, but the tension absolutely did. And according to several speculative reports circulating online, what happened inside the locker room might have been even more intense than what the world saw on the sidelines. Players said the walk back felt strangely quiet. Not angry, not chaotic, just tense. Like everyone was waiting for someone else to speak first. Rumors suggest that the moment the doors closed, you could practically feel the energy shift. Sandals slapping the floor, helmets clanking into lockers, the usual post-game chatter. It was all muted. Everyone knew what that viral clip looked like. Everyone knew what questions would be asked. And everyone knew the issue wasn't going to disappear just because the game was over. Some locker room insiders claim Jeudy walked straight to his corner without saying a word, packing a little, scrolling through his phone and shaking his head. A few players reportedly tried approaching him, but he wasn't in a talking mood. He wasn't angry at them, just frustrated, the kind of frustration that builds when a season isn't going the way you imagined. Others said he stayed mostly isolated, headphones on, locked in his own world. Meanwhile, Shedeur was apparently doing the exact opposite. Rumors online say he moved calmly through the room, addressing linemen, dapping up receivers, and checking in with the defense like nothing had happened. He wasn't avoiding the situation, but he wasn't feeding it either. A few players even mentioned privately that his composure made the rest of the locker room settle down. When the quarterback isn't rattled, it's hard for anyone else to justify being rattled. But the real shift reportedly came when several veterans stepped in. According to speculative accounts from beat writers, a couple of leaders on the team quietly gathered a small group, including Jeudy and a few receivers, and had a brief, low-voiced conversation away from the cameras. Nothing confrontational, nothing explosive, just veteran voices urging focus, unity, and reminding everyone that the locker room can't afford cracks this early in the season. One rumor even suggests that a defensive captain pulled Jeudy aside for a longer talk near the showers. Not to check him, but to realign him. To remind him that opportunities would come, that the offense was still developing, and that losing his cool, especially with a rookie quarterback, wasn't going to help anything. Whether that conversation happened exactly as described, no one knows. But something about the energy in the room definitely shifted after that moment. By the time reporters were allowed in, the mood had settled. Players were laughing again. Music was playing. The normal rhythm of a post-game locker room returned. If you walked in late, you might have thought nothing unusual had happened at all. But players knew the truth. Something had cracked earlier that night, something real. And although the tension eventually cooled, the aftershock lingered, because everyone also knew this wasn't just a one-night issue. It had the potential to shape the next week, the next game, maybe even the next major decision the franchise would make. And the front office, they were already paying attention. In the hours after the incident, fans jumped to the most dramatic conclusion possible. Could the Browns actually move on from Jerry Jeudy? It sounded extreme at first. Teams don't just ship away talent because of one heated moment. But as conversations spread across social media, radio shows, and insider circles, a surprising pattern emerged. This wasn't just wild fan speculation. According to several rumor-based reports, People inside the league had already started asking the same question. To be clear, no verified source has said the Browns are actively trying to move Jeudy, but the idea itself gained unexpected traction because the timing and circumstances were so unusual. The Browns had invested heavily in Shedeur Sanders. They reshaped the offense around him, and the front office appeared fully committed to developing him as the long-term face of the franchise. So when a veteran receiver publicly challenged him, especially in a moment where the rookie had objectively played well, it raised eyebrows. Some analysts are already pointing out that the Browns have financial flexibility. Jeudy's deal isn't impossible to move. His talent still has league-wide respect, and several teams needing receiver help could justify taking a chance on him if the Browns decided to pivot. Speculation grew stronger when a few insiders noted that the Browns' coaching staff has been emphasizing culture continuity and locker room alignment more than usual this season, phrases that often become headlines right before front office shakeups. But here, where it gets complicated, moving Jeudy isn't as simple as fans make it sound. For one, the Browns' offense is still evolving. Chemistry takes time. Roots take time. Trust between quarterback and receiver takes time. The front office knows this. Stefanski knows this. Even the players know this. So one sideline flare-up, no matter how dramatic, doesn't automatically mean a breakup is coming. Many receivers have rocky starts in new systems before everything clicks into place. What keeps the rumors alive, though, is the broader pattern. Jeudy's visible frustration, his fluctuating production, the pressure of a rising rookie quarterback, the public nature of the confrontation. The fact that the Browns haven't downplayed the situation as quickly or as aggressively as other teams might have. Each detail adds another log to the speculative fire. Some insiders even believe the Browns might quietly explore the market, not because they're desperate to move him, but to gauge interest, test the waters, and understand their options. Teams do this all the time. It's normal business. But under a spotlight like this, normal business starts to look like something bigger. Others insist the opposite, that the Browns will double down on rebuilding the connection between Shedeur and Jeudy. After all, talent like Jeudy doesn't grow on trees, and if the relationship can be repaired, the potential payoff is enormous. So the real question is whether the Browns want to move on. It's whether they believe this situation is a one-time eruption, or the start of a larger pattern that could distract a rookie quarterback's development. Right now, the answer isn't clear. But the fact that the question is even being asked tells you everything about how big this moment truly was. For more than 2 decades, the Browns have lived inside a quarterback carousel. Names came and went. First-round picks fizzled. Veterans arrived with hope and left with disappointment. Every season felt like a new experiment that ended the same way: frustration, instability, and a franchise still searching for the one thing it never seemed to have: a true, steady presence under center. So when Shedeur Sanders arrived, the question wasn't just whether he could play. It was whether he could finally break the cycle that's defined Cleveland football for an entire generation. And after the chaos of the sideline moment, that question suddenly felt louder than ever. What made Shedeur different wasn't just his arm talent, accuracy, or mechanics, though all of those were part of the package. It was the way he carried himself. Even before the season, insiders noted how comfortable he looked in meetings, how quickly he picked up Stefanski's terminology, and how naturally players gravitated toward him. He didn't act like a rookie stepping into chaos. He acted like a quarterback stepping into a story he already understood how to control. But one game doesn't define a franchise. What does matter, though, is how a quarterback responds when the storm hits. And in Cleveland, storms are inevitable. That's why the sideline confrontation ended up becoming more revealing than any touchdown or stat line. It showed exactly who Shedeur is when everything around him feels unstable. He didn't panic. He didn't lash out. He didn't treat the moment like a threat. He treated it like noise he refused to let rewrite his focus. Teammates noticed that immediately. Veteran players reportedly said privately that Shedeur's calmness under pressure made the rest of the offense feel steadier. Young receivers felt more confident. Linemen trusted the cadence. Coaches loved how he processed mistakes and moved on without dragging the emotion with him. These things don't show up in highlight reels, but they're what separate talented quarterbacks from franchise quarterbacks. And the fan base? They saw something they hadn't seen in years: consistency. Not perfection, not overnight superstardom, just a rhythm, a presence, and a sense of belief that Cleveland hadn't felt in a long time. Even critics who once labeled him a media story or just Dayan's son started shifting their tone. It wasn't hype anymore. It was leadership. But perhaps the biggest reason Shedeur looks like the answer is this: he understands the weight of the role. Cleveland isn't an easy city for quarterbacks. Expectations are high, patience is thin, and the spotlight never shuts off. Yet Shedeur seems built for it. The noise doesn't scare him. The scrutiny doesn't shake him. And moments designed to break rookies only make him more composed. Is he already the savior the Browns have waited decades for? That answer will take time. But is he showing the traits every long-term franchise quarterback needs? Command, poise, resilience, and a steady voice that cuts through chaos. Absolutely. And if this is just the beginning, Cleveland might finally have the stability it's been chasing for 20 long years. Every franchise-altering story has a moment that seems small at first. An argument, a missed read, a sideline camera pan that lasts 3 seconds too long, yet ends up becoming the spark that forces an organization to confront who it is and who it wants to become. For the Cleveland Browns, that moment wasn't a touchdown, a turnover, or a game-winning play. It was a heated outburst between a veteran receiver and a rookie quarterback that unfolded on a cold afternoon in front of 70,000 fans and millions watching at home. What looked like another episode of sideline frustration quickly evolved into a deeper examination of the team's culture, priorities, and direction. The confrontation between Jerry Jeudy and Shedeur Sanders wasn't just about a missed route or a mistimed throw. It was the culmination of years of dysfunction and the beginning of a potential cultural reset. For the first time in a long time, the Browns weren't shrugging off the drama. They were forced to look at it head-on. Because whether fans realized it or not, this wasn't just about football. It was about identity. For years, Cleveland has suffered under the weight of inconsistency. Star players clashed with coaches. Coaches clashed with ownership. Quarterbacks were cycled through the building like rental cars. And the result was always the same: disappointment wrapped in brief flashes of hope. But the moment Jerry Jeudy stood over Shedeur Sanders and barked at him on the sideline, something shifted. It was the first time the franchise had to decide whether it would continue living in that cycle or finally break it. And oddly enough, that decision revolved around a rookie quarterback who had every excuse to crumble, but didn't. Shedeur responded with composure, with professionalism, with a maturity that veterans twice his age don't always show. Instead of adding fuel to the fire, he diffused it. Instead of pointing fingers, he protected his teammates and coaches. Instead of reacting emotionally, he acted like the one thing Cleveland hasn't had in decades: a stabilizing force. And that's why this moment matters. Because cameras didn't just capture Jerry Jeudy's frustration, they captured Shedeur's control. They captured a young quarterback being tested in real time and refusing to let the moment break him. They captured a franchise watching closely, realizing that maybe, just maybe, this kid is different. Inside the building, the confrontation sparked conversations about leadership, accountability, and the future direction of the team. Outside the building, fans began to ask questions Cleveland hasn't dared to ask in years. Is this the quarterback who can change everything? Can this be the player who ends the carousel? Is this the moment the Browns finally choose stability over drama? Only time will tell. But one thing is clear: what happened on that sideline wasn't a meltdown. It was a mirror. It reflected the fractures still lingering in Cleveland's culture, but it also revealed the foundation of something stronger taking shape. If Shedeur Sanders becomes the quarterback Cleveland has spent 2 decades searching for, we may look back on this heated exchange not as a sign of chaos, but as the moment the franchise finally turned the corner. A moment that didn't define the Browns' dysfunction, but the moment that started redefining who they could become.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.